When I was 10, I lived in Southwest Texas. It got so hot in summer there, that one day we literally fried an egg on the sidewalk. On this particular summer day, my mom had taken me and my friend to the library to check out and read some books. We had finished our reading and picked our books, and so we decided to play around with the elevator. There were only 2 floors to the library, and one of us would go into the elevator, and as soon as the doors closed, the other would race down or up the stairs and try to beat the elevator. I was waiting for the elevator on the 2nd floor, and as it dinged my friend took off. But as I stood there, the doors opened, and I got a huge shock. The elevator was full of about 8 or 9 people. But they were all looking up at the numbers inside it, staring, unblinkingly like Zen cows. There was a man at the front, wearing a black 3-piece suit, gloves, a fedora and a cane. Keep in mind this was in Texas during 110-degree F+ heat. He was gaunt, with a white mustache, and slightly resembled the guy in Needful Things. He smiled wide when he saw me, and said in a voice I'll never forget, "There's room for one more." I was freaked. No thanks," I replied. The elevator doors closed as the man sort of tilted his hat. As I stood there in shock, my friend came back up the stairs, slightly winded. "Hey, where were you?" he asked me. I explained to him I couldn't use the elevator because it was packed full. "There was nobody on the elevator," he said. I look back on this often, and the question what if I'd gotten on it haunts me. I have absolutely no clue what would have happened if I'd gotten on, and it is sort of frightening, for sure. I know how all of it sounds, but I swear to the higher power this really happened. So one of my closest friends growing up lived in a house that was, beyond a reasonable doubt, haunted AF. The house was definitely somewhere around a century old, or at least now it is, and our town was situated in a very woodsy suburb. He and every member of his family had experiences there. Several of our friends had their own experiences there, and I had my own too. Honestly, it would be impossible to try and condense it down into one experience, and I believe it's worth sharing the accounts I can remember. I'll start with the least scary one, which was thankfully my own, and then move to the ones worth telling. During high school, my parents went on a vacation, and for a few days I stayed at this particular house of my friend, let's call him Paul. I stayed in Paul's room in a sleeping bag on the floor while he slept in his bed. One morning, I woke up to someone whispering in my ear, like directly into my ear, "My name, you need to leave now." It did not say this super maliciously, almost more of a warning. It definitely woke me up though, and immediately I'm thinking Paul was fucking with me as he frequently did, but I turned around to my right, where he was sleeping, and realized he was completely out. I said, "What?" to him, thinking he was joking around and he didn't wake up. He was definitely asleep. It was quiet and still too early for even Paul's parents to be up. Then it hit me, as it still hits me today. I heard the whisper in my left ear, and Paul was on my right side. Paul had other experiences in that same room, a few I can remember off the top of my head. For a time, he told me he suffered from sleep paralysis on a consistent basis. He would see demons in his room and would be unable to move. He told me that, very frequently in his sleep, the standing fan by his bed would become a demon girl, and he would wake up with a jolt of adrenaline having punched or thrown the fan down to the ground. He told me he would sometimes see someone standing in the closet his bed faced, both asleep and awake. Oddly enough, his sleep paralysis significantly decreased as soon as he moved out of that place. That floor, the second floor where Paul, his parents, and 2 of his 4 sisters slept, was spooky. I remember getting weird feelings up there. One of his sisters claimed to see the ghost of a little boy in their bathroom. His mom once opened the closet in her bedroom to find the same little boy standing in there, looking up at her and asking for his mom. I heard about that one when I was in middle school and it always creeped me out, it's always scarier when the adults see them too. Before my own experience, I generally thought Paul was just trying to fuck with me when he would tell me about these other experiences. Most of our other friends were the same way, thinking Paul was full of shit. Even after my own experience, at times I thought I just as easily could have dreamt it up. But then a few of those same friends, some of them complete non-believers beforehand, had their own experiences, and that changed my whole idea of the house. Once a year, Paul and his family would take a trip and have someone take care of their 2 dogs. One of our mutual friends came over to do just that one day. When she got there that evening to feed the dogs, the house was dark and empty. For some context, the dogs were being fed near the kitchen, and adjacent to the kitchen was the dining room, which led further away into the entryway and after that, a small living room. Well, not long after feeding the dogs, she heard a blood-curdling scream, a goddamn shriek, coming from that living room, like someone was inside with her. She booked it outside with the dogs, checked for intruders, and saw no one was there. I'm pretty sure after that she called Paul, told him what happened, and he laughed and said, "Yeah, shit like that happens sometimes." A couple years later, one of the bigger doubters in our group, who thought all of us were full of shit, had his own experience. Paul hosted a fair amount of parties back then, and usually we would use his basement to avoid any sort of noise complaint. So all of us are in the basement having a good time, and this particular friend of ours decides to run up and grab another drink from upstairs. Mind you, this friend is not the kind of guy to get completely fucked up, like he'll only ever have a beer or 2 at most. So for all intents and purposes, he's sober. He goes up and the ground floor was completely empty as everyone is in the basement. There was a porch directly outside the dining room / entryway / living room, and it extended long ways across the back of the house. As our friend was walking into the dining room to grab a beer off the table, he sees a tall, grim-looking woman standing on the porch outside, looking through the window directly at him. He knows something is wrong because she's sort of featureless and also standing outside, by herself, looking inside. He takes his eyes off her one moment, looks back and she's gone. A few days later, he tells Paul what happened, and Paul tells him how he and his siblings have seen that same woman before. Our friend becomes a believer. The basement was creepy as hell, but I can only think of one thing that ever happened down there. It was more of a storage cellar than anything. We still used it for parties and just generally hanging out, but it was so cluttered with random shit that whole areas of the room were completely cut off. At some point in college, one summer when I was back home, Paul and his family were doing the annual Throw Old Shit Away Fest and he openly invited some friends to come help. I came one day, and when I got there Paul's dad nonchalantly told me, "You get to see the secret room." Turns out that in the far corner of the basement, behind a bunch of clutter, was a little storage closet nobody, besides maybe Paul's parents, knew about. We investigated it that day, and in it we found a bunch of random, old shit. I can't remember everything exactly, I don't even know if Paul's family knew what this stuff was, but among all of it, I specifically remember finding this very old-fashioned, vintage music box. You know, like the one in The Conjuring with the dancing ballerina. That kind of thing. We decided it was creepy and didn't want anything to do with it and left it in that closet. Well, on a different day, when I thankfully was not there, Paul and another friend were cleaning out the basement when suddenly that same music box started playing by itself, from behind the door of the closet. They were alone and had not been in that closet all day. They bolted up the stairs. At the top of the house there were 2 small bedrooms, both belonging to Paul's older sisters. This is the last one I will share as it's the story that's stuck with me the longest. The second oldest sister once had a vivid and intense dream in which she herself was being exorcised. A demon was being forced out of her as a group of priests were standing over her convulsing body, shouting verse at her, and she remembered it just being crazy intense. After enduring this for some time, she suddenly jolts herself awake and yells, and at that precise moment a rosary she kept hanging on her wall flies from its place, crashes to the floor and shatters into a bunch of pieces. Completely on its own. She was covered in sweat and completely terrified. No one else was in the room. Yeah, that place was fucking haunted. My family and I went to a vacation home in Laguna, California area around 2012. It was built on a sort of incline in a big hill, so my room was sort of underground. If you can visualize this, imagine the small window in my bathroom aligning with the topsoil of the front yard. I had my own room for the duration of the week. It was our first time as a family having a vacation rental, and naturally all of my siblings and I would stay up late and scare the shit out of each other. Next to the master bedroom where my parents slept, there was a locked room. I don't think my parents had the key to. I've mind mapped it out in my head dozens of times, and it was right above my room that was downstairs. The night before my parents, younger brother, and I left, my older sibs and their family left earlier in the day. It was a big-ass house and dark as fuck. My younger brother roomed with me, and around the early hours of the morning I woke up out of nowhere. I lay there for a second and heard a big thud above me. It seriously sounded like someone dropped a stack of dictionaries of something heavy but not super heavy. It happened again, and then my brother woke up and of course asked me, what the fuck was that? We both were laying there with pits in our stomachs because we were constantly making up bullshit all week, lol. My brother finally just says, I'm calling Dad. He tries to call him but it just went straight to voicemail. I'll never forget seeing my brother's hand trembling when he was dialing. Finally our dad comes down and asks why my brother wasn't talking when he picked the phone. So I'm just gonna blame that part on the fact that my room was sort of underground and the reception was probably weird. We tell him what we heard and he sort of brushed it off, no big deal. So it's like 5:30 in the morning and our bags are fucking packed and we are sitting on the couch like alright, we're ready to fucking leave. Of course our older siblings don't believe us, don't care. At about 23 years old and working for a small local-owned flooring company. My boss had rented out a big-ass warehouse at the train depot/port area of Anchorage, Alaska, and it was a really old building. As you walk in, one of the first things you are met with is a giant round vault door about 6 feet in diameter to your left that's really old and locked, an empty office in front, and a short flight of stairs, about 10 steps, down that lead to the main warehouse area where there is a rolling door on the complete other side of the warehouse and the power box was across on the wall between there. So basically I have to do a big triangle across an empty and next to pitch black warehouse other than dim backup lights every now and then that just made it creepier. Boss wanted me to go in, turn on the power and lights, and open the door for him. It's about 8 p.m. and we have a night gig to work across town, so we gotta hurry and load tools and materials. He drops me off at the front door and I go down the stairs and immediately feel creeped out and feel as if being watched. I shake it off and just head to the power panel. As I'm about to get to it, look down into the warehouse to my left for some reason and swear I saw a shadowy silhouette of a man standing partially behind a support pillar looking at me. My hairs stand up and I flick the lights on and look back and nothing there. I am a bit freaked now, so I hurry and open the door and we load the stuff. He pulls out, I close the door and head back to turn off the power. As I'm walking back, out of my peripheral to my right I see the man again by the same pillar and look, but it wasn't there. Toss it off as my mind playing tricks on me because it's already creepy there. I turn off the power and because I'm creeped out I fast walk like an old lady at the mall to the stairs with my eyes darting side to side. I get to the stairs and as I'm putting my foot down on the first step, fuck, I'm getting chills again typing this, I hear a very loud smack right behind me as if someone clapped their hands really hard, and so I fucking book it up the stairs. As I'm going up there is only what I can describe as someone very heavy and wearing boots running up the stairs right fucking behind me, freaking me absolutely the fuck out, and I fly up the stairs, get to the top, and spin around ready to knuckle dust some bum that broke into the building. But there was fucking nothing there. No one. Nothing. I run out the door and jump into my boss's truck and he saw me run out and hop in his truck and saw my face and said, "See, that's why I had you go in there, that place is fucking scary, haunted." I am not making this up, this is 100% what happened as detailed as I can remember. Ghost scared me out of warehouse and boss knew about it and is why he sent me in alone.